Hey guys, if you're interested in checking out a video version of the show, please visit the LOWKEY GEEK channel on YouTube. There you can not only catch the video version of the podcast, but you can also check out my other projects and short form video that I produce. You can find a link in the description. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the morning after. Good morning. The morning after what, you may ask? Well, it's the morning after Boba Fett. So this is going to be the weekly kind of spoiler review show or discussion, talk show, however you want to call it, that I will be doing after every episode of the Book of Boba Fett drops up until the season concludes. Hopefully it's going to be a continuation of the series later on in the future, or this may be just something to hold us over up until the next season of The Mandalorian. But every week I will be going over each episode, and I want to engage in discussion and conversation with all of you guys here on the channel. So if you're new to the channel and you're just coming across this and you like what you see and you want to engage in conversation, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of cool things to talk about week after week once each time the episodes drop here. So Book of Boba Fett premiered yesterday. And we got chapter 1, Stranger in a Strange Land. And let me just say that it's so nice just to have Star Wars back. I feel like many of you, there's been a little bit of a gap and withdrawal, so to speak, ever since season 2 of The Mandalorian came to a close. I know we got Star Wars Visions that kind of held us over, but it's just great to see live action Star Wars back on the screen, whether it be on streaming. Not sure exactly when we're going to get any movies again, but it's just really, really good to see Star Wars back on TV. And with this episode, I have to say that it does have a lot of similar vibes to The Mandalorian, but with enough of its own voice, enough of its own characteristics, because we are picking up the story of Boba Fett once we were reintroduced to him in season 2 of The Mandalorian. And of course we see him with Fennec taking over the role of Jabba the Hutt and being the new crime lord on Tatooine in Mos Espa. But this episode has a lot of flashbacks, and I think it's not only necessary, but it's also very good that they did that, because I think, like many of you who saw Boba Fett return, we want to know what the hell he's been up to, right? Like, how the hell did he escape the Sarlacc pit, right? And how did he, go upon his journey trying to reclaim his armor? How did he end up, finally meeting the Mandalorian or meeting Fennec and all that? So I felt like we did get a good amount of backstory, and I have a feeling that it's going to be a series where it's going to be a mix of backstory, flashbacks, and current situation, things that are happening with Boba now as he takes on the reins of crime lord there in Mos Espa. I really, really enjoyed this episode. It was a little bit shorter than what I may have liked. I kind of wish it was just like what we were getting with the Hawkeye series recently. I kind of wish it was more of an hour-long episodic series where we get hour-long episodes. But who knows? This could also be like in The Mandalorian, where every episode was just a different running time. I felt like week after week, one of the games you would play is guess the running time of the next episode of The Mandalorian, right? So this may be another situation here, but I think it was a good enough tease to help set the tone as to what is to be expected from this series so far. Tamora Morrison is fantastic. I really, really enjoy seeing him back in this role. Of course, you got Ming-Na Wen, who is amazing as Fennec. And of course, those are the two main characters that we're getting so far. We haven't really been introduced to anyone particularly new, but we were introduced to some potentially important characters that may play out throughout the series. So, like I said, it was short and sweet, answered a lot of questions that many of us may have had for decades now. And I think I will, start diving into the spoilers now. So like I said before, if you haven't watched this episode yet, come back to the video or the audio form podcast once you do so. And, let's engage in some healthy and great conversation about what we are watching. So, and before I continue, like I mentioned, these episodes will drop every Thursday, every week on the YouTube channel. And if you are someone who's interested in more of an audio format, you could find these episodes drop in audio format on podcast platforms of your choice, like Apple Podcast, Spotify. Just find it under the LOWKEY GEEK podcast channel, and you could find all the links in the description of this video and this episode. So be sure to check it out, and thank you once again for tuning in. So the big question that many of us have always had for the longest time is, how in the world did Boba Fett escape the Sarlacc pit? Or did he, right? For the longest time, we don't know. There's always been like these fan-made stories about how he escaped. There were always rumors in previous years about him re-emerging and being reintroduced to us in Star Wars, and then we were finally treated to his reintroduction in Mandalorian. But the question still remains: how in the world did he escape, right? What happened and what's been happening since, right? So the episode does start off where we see Boba in Jabba's palace on Tatooine, and he's not, the young spry Boba that we were probably treated to since we last saw him in Return of the Jedi, right? Or even in The Mandalorian. I mean, this is a guy that has been going, or apparently has gone through a lot of crap. So he needs to take care of his body and his ailments and all that. So we see him in a Bacta tank, a new version of a Bacta tank. I've always remembered the one that Luke was in Empire Strikes Back, as he's floating around, with his little tidy whities and stuff like that. Here, this looks more like those incubation chambers that maybe Michael Jackson has used. If you've seen pictures of MJ in this, preservation chamber or what have you. But he's in this thing, and he is having dreams, and these are flashbacks to his life. We get treated to scenes of Camino, and we all know that in the prequels, that's where we met a younger version of Boba with his dad Jango. And then of course we know that Boba witnessed the death of his father there, and we got treated to that scene once again of a young Boba holding the helmet of Jango, really being torn apart by that. Then we get this image, and this is where I started to lose my shit, because it's like, oh my God, we're gonna get to see how the hell he escaped the Sarlacc, right? So we get this image, and you see basically Boba just waking up, coming to, right? And he's in this gullet of whatever this crazy creature is. And now it's time to figure out what's, you see like the acid maybe kind of tearing his armor apart little by little. He sees a dead stormtrooper, which I think is really funny, who's just there. And again, this also shows us a little something of how the stormtrooper armor works, because he rips out a cord from the armor that contains oxygen, and he sticks it into his helmet, and he's starting to breathe, right? So he gets some air in him. So it's really cool to get like another confirmation of how these stormtroopers kind of live within this armor, right? The ins and outs and all that. So that happens, and then he starts to struggle. All right, how the hell am I going to get out of this thing? He punches his way here. He uses his little, flamethrower thingy, and he finally gets out. Right, so he basically, it just looks like he fought his way out of this creature. We never get to see the creature emerge, not like how we've seen it in The Mandalorian. This creature may have been a dormant-like creature, or a creature just lives in this one place. But he busts through the sand, and you see like the debris of the blown up Jabba's barge, the sail barge that Jabba was on, and he was taunting Luke and all that stuff like that. And of course we know that they blew up the barge to make their escape. So it was nice to see that in the background as he's like climbing out and digging out. Very, very cool stuff. But he's still weak, right? And he passes out. And these freaking Jawas, man, these Jawas, they are so ruthless, and they are true scavengers, right? So you see their, the infamous ship that they drive around in, and they just go over to him and they start picking apart his armor. Just be like, all right, we're gonna get this, we're gonna get that, we're gonna make some great money from all this. He comes to, and he's like, yo, the fuck you guys doing, right? That's my stuff. And one of them just goes and knocks him right out, and they continue on doing what they're doing, right? So they take up, and I'm pretty sure they're also going to ravage and go through the barge, because I'm pretty sure that they're going to find a lot of stuff there for themselves and all that. Time passes. Boba's still, passed out in the desert there, and then these Tusken Raiders, the Sand People, come across, and they see him, rope him up, wake him up, and they start yanking him away, right? So you automatically think, okay, this is probably going to be a new slave of theirs. It's a new captive of theirs, and they just basically take him into their camp. One of the saddest, well, not saddest, but most messed up parts outside of the Jawas ravaging, his armor and all that, is he comes to, and he's tied up to this post, and you have all of these like younglings, the youngling Tusken Raiders, right? And it looks like at first, they're just observing him and like, oh, who's this guy? This is someone new. We haven't seen this guy before. And then they just start beating the crap out of him. And, everyone's just watching, and I'm like, aha, this guy, he's going to do well for us, slave-wise, right? Then fast forward, he comes to at night, and he tries to make an escape. And we still see that he has the ability in him to do what he has to do. He was able to subdue like their dog-like creature there. And guys, look, I'm not going to know the names of all the creatures here. All right. I am not well versed in all the Star Wars creature names and all that stuff like that. So if I miss something, my bad. You can let me know in the comments what the names are and all that, but I'm not going to be like, the walking encyclopedia of Star Wars knowledge. I love Star Wars, and that's why I enjoy these shows and I enjoy the movies. But if you are looking for someone that knows beat by beat everything, there are a lot of other guys out there who will be able to fulfill all that stuff for you. But I learn, right? So, if you tell me something, then I go, oh, okay, that's the name of that creature. Very cool. So, just let me know what I'm missing here. But he comes to, and he subdues this creature, and he's trying to make his escape, and he breaks free from his ropes there. He sees another captive who just was watching him the whole time, a Greedo looking like dude. And Boba still, this is a side of Boba that we don't really get to see. He looks at the guy, and he's like, hey, do you want me to break you free too? Like, come on, we could make a break for it. And what does this guy do? He just starts screaming and like, hey, in his own language, probably like, this guy is escaping, So he makes a run for it. Everyone's chasing him down. When they finally catch up to him, it's interesting because they don't really decide to beat up on him immediately. They kind of put him through like this trial. And I think they're really basically trying to test his might, right? Test his will and all that. So what looks like is one of their superior warriors goes toe to toe with him. And he tries his best. You know, mind you, he was in a Sarlacc for a good amount of time. He just got out. He hasn't eaten. He hasn't drank anything, at least from what it seems like. He's pretty exhausted. So he doesn't have all his wits to him. And of course he loses, right? And then they decide to pummel him all over again. But the cool thing was that he never really went after the youngling. You know, he kind of like, in a way, spared the youngling's life, because the youngling was one of the first ones that actually saw him trying to escape. But he kind of just like threatened him a little bit and just let him go. And that's going to come into play later on in the episode. So, you know, we get to see a bit of that, and then we flash forward and he's back at the back of the tank and Fennec is there trying to wake him up. You know, it looks like this is still the early days of his rule, you know, after taking out Bib Fortuna, like what we saw in Mandalorian. So now people are coming over to pay their respects, right? To give their offerings, to play nice with the new crime lord, right? And first off, I have to say the chemistry between Ming-Na and Tamora Morrison is fantastic. The back and forth that they have with each other is really, really well done. The chemistry, you could really tell, is there, and you could kind of see like why they're together, right? We still don't know the main specifics as to what the deal is there. I mean, we do know it just seems like it's like a life death situation, right? He rescued her from her death, and now they're, you know, tied to the hip, just like Chewie and Han Solo were, right? You know, but they are on the same page a lot of the time. So Boba gets dressed. I also do love, and maybe this was a little bit too much, but he has his own suitors, robot suitors. So they're helping him put the armor on and all that stuff like that as he gets himself ready for the throne room. One of the funniest scenes was that one of the townspeople that came over started talking to them, and it looks like they're offering him, you know, money and all that stuff to play nice. And Boba looks over at Fennec, is like, did you catch anything that dude was saying? And they're like, no. And he's like, we really need a protocol droid. And I think that was really, really hilarious. So who knows what they're going to get in the future in this series. Hopefully we get some sort of translator for them. And as they're going through, meeting all these people, they come across kind of like this servant or this, in mafia terms, kind of like a consigliere, right? Like a speaker of the boss. And he's very arrogant, right? Very, very snotty and all that. And apparently he works for the mayor of the town. Never mentions who the mayor is. We still don't know at the end of this episode who that mayor is. So that in itself is very interesting. So that could be like another big reveal or a big confrontation later on. But basically, he's like, I'm not here to give you respect. Like, you should be giving us respect. You know, I'm just here to play nice, say hello, how you doing, introduce myself, and expect to hear from us and all that. So where's my offering, so to speak? And Boba's like, are you kidding me? I'm not giving you anything. And Fennec is like already pissed off. He's like, should I kill this dude? And like, no, we need to play nice. So he just makes a very firm statement that, like, you know, okay, nice of you to come by, but I ain't giving you anything. You know, I think you should be respecting me because I am the new crime lord here. And, you know, he's like, all right, well, with all due respect, I think you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. Don't be surprised if you get visited again sometime soon. The mayor's probably going to not be happy about this stuff. So, okay, whatever. So they decide to go into town, and then we get to see Mos Espa, you know, the big city there. And another funny joke that they made is like, you should have let them carry you around, you know, like the Hutts, they would parade around town being carried and all that. It's like, I'm not going to be carried. I'm walking. Like, this is different, you know, like I am not here to rule by fear. I'm here to rule by respect. right? And this is like something you saw in the teaser trailers. And I feel like that's gonna come back and bite him. And there are there are reasons in this episode why that may be. But I have a feeling that that attitude may have to change. But we don't know yet, right? So he's walking around. And before that, sorry, I know sometimes I skip around. He made nice with these two Gamorrean guards who were very loyal to Bib Fortuna. And it sounds like very loyal to Jabba at one point. And, basically instead of killing them off because they refused to kind of give in, they refused to give themselves in. So instead they were chained up. He's like, you guys are very loyal to your previous bosses. Will you be loyal to me in the same way if I spare your lives? And they kneel down immediately, and they do. So again, you get to see Boba the way he's really planning to rule here. And he's really, he's like, again, like he said, it's all about respect, right? It's not fear tactics. He's not like Jabba, where if it was Jabba, he'd like kill them immediately for not agreeing to things and all that stuff. So these guards are also walking along with them because, like they said, they are going to be very loyal. They go into a cantina, the local cantina, and we get to see Jennifer Beals. If you don't know who Jennifer Beals is, she's very well known for the movie Flashdance. So it was really, really nice to see her in this role, playing really nice. And, he's like, I'm just going around ensuring everyone here in the town that business will be as normal. It's just I'm the new crime lord, right? And instead of sending out memos or people to speak for him, he himself is walking around introducing himself to everybody, which was pretty cool, right? And this cantina is very lively. It's not like the Mos Eisley cantina that we've seen in the movies. It's more vibrant. It has more life in it. A lot of people are having fun and they're enjoying. When they walked in, they were being offered to, clean their helmets. For the Gamorrean guards, they were being offered baths and food and all that. So very, very nice. And, it looks like for now, they are really, truly respecting Boba once they meet him, right? So again, we don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but it was kind of nice to see the interactions there. And again, the interactions between Fennec and Boba as they're walking around and as they're learning things, because Fennec is very careful. And you can tell she's someone that doesn't really easily trust people. So she's trying to convince Boba to kind of think the same way. It's like, well, sometimes fear may be a good thing, in order to get more of a better grasp and make sure to know exactly who your enemies are and all that stuff like that. But Boba's like, like, again, it's all about respect and all that. And then they get jumped. These assassins show up. And this is like one of the main action scenes of the episode. They hold their ground for the most part, but they're getting really beat up pretty badly because they're surrounded by like 6 people and all that. But the Gamorrean guards come through and they really, really help them out. But Boba was getting his ass kicked left and right. Him and Fennec were really having a hard time because these guys had these big shields and these big electronic sticks and all that. And they were really going to town on them. 3 of them was able to start to escape, right? And one of the again, even though Boba is trying to rule by respect, he's still a bounty hunter. He still is ruthless. And he sees one of them climbing up the building and he just shoots a rock and basically blasts him away, right? Which was pretty freaking awesome. Fennec sees the other 2 and starts booking for them. Boba yells out at her. It's like, one of them has to be alive. Like, I want them alive, because he wants to start, asking questions and all that stuff like that. But Boba is like really, really hurt. So he's asking the guards, like, get me back to the back tank. I really need the back tank. So they do so. They take him back and all that stuff like that. The next part is Fennec basically chasing, running around the rooftops, chasing these 2 assassins. And one of the coolest things about this episode, and what I'm loving so far about this series, again, this is just episode 1, is that it feels like a real legit city. Now, we already know, if you've watched the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian, they use like I forgot what they call it, the view or whatever, the big thing where the studio where they have all the LCD screens all around, and they're projecting a lot of the imagery so that everyone can really like know how they're acting, know what they're looking at, know the scenery and all that stuff like that without any green screens, which is revolutionary, right? Here, I feel like there's so much use of practical effects and practical like scenery that you really do feel like they're running around the rooftops of Mos Eisley, which is phenomenal. It is so cool how they did this. And I'm pretty sure Robert Rodriguez had a lot to say about that, because the episode that he directed in The Mandalorian felt very real too, because he used real locations instead of just staying within that studio, right? And you feel it here too. You feel like you're in a real city. And I love the chase scene and all that stuff like that. And, you could see she is truly a badass, how she's able to maneuver her way around. Now, we've already seen her in like animated form, which is pretty cool in the Bad Batch. But to see live action Fennec do her shit is awesome. It's really, really cool. She confronts the two that are remaining, and it looks like they're about to surrender. And she looks at one of them, and as she's looking at the other dude, kicks the other dude off the roof. So he's dead, and is like, all right, now you're the prisoner. I'm taking you. So we have yet to see what's going to come out of the interrogation with that new prisoner that they took on. But we get to see Boba back in the Bacta tank, because he needs to heal up, right? And now we get more flashbacks, and we get to see once again him in the camp of the Tusken Raiders. And like I said before, the reason why the whole thing about the youngling, it's going to come to play here, where the youngling looks like he just is a little dicky kid, right? And he wants to have fun with these guys, and at the same time he wants these guys to do work for them, right? So he takes on Boba and the other Greedo looking dude. They go marching off into the desert, and basically he's asking them, first there's this one interesting scene where they're looking at a home that's being raided by some guys, and they beat up the homeowner and all that, and they're just looking, right? Not doing anything. They're just observing. And as Boba sees this guy getting beat up, you could tell Boba didn't really like seeing that. Again, you're getting a sense that Boba does have sort of a heart in him. Maybe he's had a change in, how he perceives the world, especially having a second chance on life, right? Because we've always felt like Boba was this ruthless bounty hunter, no shits given or taken, and he does what he has to do and all that, and he'll do what he has to do to get the job done. And we also kind of saw it in The Mandalorian too. So, but it looks like he has like this heart to him. So he didn't like seeing all that stuff, but then they go away. And this kid basically asks them to work for him, and they're looking for these little pods that contain water. And it was pretty funny, because Boba, for the longest time, he's digging in the sand, and the Greedo dude, he keeps finding the pods, and he's like, "Yahoo! I did it! And Boba's like, "How come I can't find one?" Right? And it was really, and he's kind of taunting the Greedo dude. It's like, dude, we could have escaped. We, if you just went with me, we could have made it and all that stuff. And the guy's like, rah, 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 leave me alone and all that stuff. So they're doing that. And there's another scene where you just see the kid lounging. The kid's just lounging with his little dog creature. And he's like, la, 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 la. And Bo's like, the fuck, man? Like, this kid, right? So Boba finally finds his pod. And of course, Boba is thirsty. So he just breaks it up and starts drinking it. And the kid comes over and is like, what are you doing? So he was about to hit him and Boba just catches the stick, right? And he's like, hey, I'm thirsty. Let me have this drink. And so he does it, gives it back, all that stuff. Very interesting. So he's really forming this interesting relationship with this little kid, with this youngling. And then the crazy stuff happens, which is the second biggest action scene of the episode so far. This giant creature with multiple arms, looks like something out of like a Harryhausen movie, comes out of the sand, and he's like, it's time to cause ruckus, right? He beats the crap out of the Greedo dude, right, and slams him into the ground, and so basically that dude's dead. And the kid is like, oh my God, what is this? He tries his best to go at the guy, at the creature, fails. He gets flicked off, right? The dog tries to go after the dude, flicked off. Boba's like, screw this, I'm doing this myself. He takes on this dude, uses his own chains to strangle him out and all that. And then you get that like hero moment. And basically it's the same hero moment that you see on the thumbnail of this episode, where he's just standing on top of the dead creature, holding the chains, like, I'm Boba Fett, you know? So it's like a nice little hero moment. Then they go back into town. The kid's really happy. Somehow they got the head of the creature and now it's a trophy, right? And the kids just go into the camp boasting, and it almost sounds as if like the kid is saying like, I did this, I'm the one who killed this creature, it was me. And Boba's just watching, just be like, all right, and all that. Now you see the chieftain, the same chieftain that was watching Boba get beat up by the younglings, the same chieftain that when they were chasing him down told their head warrior to, all right, go at him. Chieftain keeps looking at Boba, and at that moment, you feel like he's gained respect for Boba, right? So as this youngling is walking around town, boasting, like, look what I got, I'm the man. Chieftain walks over to Boba. He has his little pod, and he gives it to Boba. And Boba's like, damn right, you're giving me this. He drinks it. Episode ends. So this is where you're going to see the reason why I think respect is important. And you are probably going to see, or we're going to see, why Boba wants to rule by respect, because I think he's going to be learning a lot of things from the Tusken Raiders with his time there. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get more insights about his time there, because we know when he showed up in The Mandalorian, he had the gaffy stick and everything. It really, really looked like he learned a lot from the Sand People and gained their respect while doing it. And I'm pretty sure that's how he's going to carry on his life and his rule of Mos Espa as the new crime lord, taking over Jabba's throne, or Bib Fortuna's role and all that. So really, really awesome stuff. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really well done, and I'm excited. But like I said, unfortunately, it was short because now I really want to see more. I want to see where things progress here, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of stuff. I think the series is only 6 or 8 episodes. I'm not really sure. Correct me in the comments about that. But I saw a lot of people like on Twitter and all that saying, oh, they should have done the Hawkeye thing where they released 2 episodes immediately. I don't think that was necessary. I think what they're doing right now is good enough. I think they're giving us that tease, and they're setting the tone. They're setting the tone for the show. And they answered questions that most of us had for decades. Like I said, we found out the one thing we've always wanted to find out, especially after seeing his return in The Mandalorian, and how the hell did he get out of the Sarlacc pit? And they gave it to us. And it was a simple thing. It wasn't something so outstanding or ridiculous or whatever. It was a simple thing, and it made sense. And that's it. That's all you need, right? Now, what's making Boba who he is now, and how he's going to move on, and what is his real intentions with Mos Espa, and why did he decide to go back, take over Jabba's throne? Like, what is it? This is a new chapter in Boba's life, right? Hence, Book of Boba Fett. And it'll be interesting to see what transpired to get him to this point and why he wants to do this moving forward. So I'm really, really excited to see what's going to happen, how it's going to tie into things, if at all it's going to tie into The Mandalorian a lot, how it might play with all this other Star Wars series that they're coming out with, like Ahsoka and all that. A lot of people are guessing who we're going to see show up on the show. I know there's a huge campaign out there about Cad Bane. You know, hopefully we could see like a Cad Bane in this. Who knows? I'm down for the ride, and I really, really liked what we got so far. So again, doesn't really matter at all what I think. I always say that what matters most is what all of you think. So definitely let me know a lot of your thoughts in the comments. What are some of the Easter eggs that maybe I've missed? Admittingly, I did watch this episode twice, but it's you always catch things when you watch it a third time or a fourth time or whatever. And since it was not that long, I think it was like 38 minutes or so, it's a very easy watch. That's why it's very easy to watch it twice, unlike, you know, hour-long episodes and all that. So more than likely I will watch it again before the new episode drops next week. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about everything. You know, were you disappointed about anything on this episode? Did you wish it was longer like I did? Are you one of those guys, girls who think that we should have gotten 2 episodes? You know, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. And like I said before, this series here, this episodes will drop every Thursday morning, the morning after. And I will be doing these for like a lot of the Marvel shows and the Star Wars shows that we're going to get in the future. Maybe it might venture off into other programming. Dexter is coming to a close, so it's too late for me to start up a series on that. But I will do my full review of Dexter once the series concludes. Stay tuned to the channel. I'll do also a quick discussion about Hawkeye and what I think about that. But thank you once again for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And don't forget, you could also catch audio forms of this show in the talking. That's another episode. That's another show I do. In the LOWKEY GEEK podcast channel on your podcast platform of choice. So until next week, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and I will catch all of you next time. Peace.